And we're here with Brad Simonis. Good morning, Brad.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm excited to go over all of this wonderful information and share it with our viewers. And Brad is actually our certified analytics specialist on the Illuminous Marketing team. Brad and I have worked together for probably about 13 years now, on and off in different companies and different roles, but always in the marketing space. And he is certified in Google Analytics and is our specialist with Tag Manager, as well as Data Studio, now Looker Studio, and Search Console. So the first thing that we want to get a feel for today is how many of you have Google Analytics 4. So I'm going to launch a quick poll here and just let us know in that poll if you already have Google Analytics 4 installed on your website, and whether, and some of you might not know, and that's fine. So let us know in the poll if you do. And then also let us know, are you a solopreneur running your business, or are you an entrepreneur that has other people on your team, or are you working in a corporate environment or with an agency? We'd really just like to get to know the audience so that we can speak to your specific needs and your specific usage. All right, it looks like we've got a number of respondents, so I'm going to end that poll, and it looks like 50% of you have Google Analytics 4 installed, and 50% do not. So this will be great. We'll have resources for both of those instances. Okay, if you want to go on to the next slide, Brad. So back in 2020, when Google announced that they were rolling this out, it seemed like we had forever to be able to install GA4 on our websites. However, now we are at May 3rd today, and we have about 58 days left to get analytics installed and get used to using that interface before GA3 goes away. So 58 days is just like Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. Oh no, we're not quite ready for, some of us are not quite ready for this July 1st switch over. So today we're going to talk about, if we can go to the next slide, please, Brad, thank you. We're going to talk about why you need Google Analytics 4, other than the fact that Google Analytics 3 is going away. We're also going to talk about recommended installation methods, and we will also talk about some of the different metrics that are in Google Analytics 4 versus 3. So if you are a person who is consistently in your analytics, this is going to be a little bit of a change for you in 4, because they're measuring things differently and they're also labeling things differently. So we're going to go through that. We'll also talk about your reporting features, and then we'll talk about what are we going to do once GA3 stops collecting data. What are we going to do with all of that historical data that you might want to be able to refer to? So that's another good reason why we don't want to wait until July 1st to get the new GA4 installed on your website, because you want to have a little bit of time to compare your data from your GA3 to GA4. And you also want to be able to look back a year from now and be able to compare that different data. So that's what we're going to cover today. So, pardon me, a quick overview of how we got to where we are today. And this is important for understanding why they're making this changeover. So in 1998, Urchin, which is the original platform that analytics was built on, was founded. And in 2005, Google acquired Urchin and made their platform into what we now know as universal analytics. That's the basis for the platform. So in 2007, Google released what we're referring to now as GA2 or classic Google Analytics. And then over 2012 to 2014, Universal Analytics, GA3 as we know it today, and Tag Manager, which is a system that allows you to insert one code into your website for the Tag Manager and then add tags to your Tag Manager, which we'll briefly cover. Both of those things launched in between 2012 and 2014. Which is 10 years ago already, if we can believe that. So then in 2016, Google acquired Firebase, and this is what really allows them to start measuring traffic on mobile apps. And they also launched this new tag, this new way of installing analytics onto our website, which is the gtag.js. Some of you might remember these big, giant, long codes that you had to install into your website. And so that was when that was released. But as I mentioned a few minutes ago, 2020 was when GA4 was officially released in beta mode. And they've, of course, done a lot of development since 2020 to get to this point in 2023. But again, we're about 58 days away from GA3 sunsetting and when we are going to really be forced to use GA4. And go on to that. There you go. Pardon me. So one thing to understand about analytics is that Universal Analytics, as we know it today, what we're referring to as GA3, is really built on the foundation of Urchin. So that began in 1998, as we just discussed from the last slide. So I heard another analytics expert frame this analogy in this way, which is that Universal Analytics is really like your Ford Mustang, your 1967 Ford Mustang. You've restored it, new paint job, new tires, new upholstery, all of these beautiful things. It looks really, really beautiful, but that car is never going to be able to drive itself. It's never going to be able to be it's never going to have Bluetooth, hands-free driving when you're talking to someone. And so no matter how much Google really improves upon their Universal Analytics, in this analogy, the Ford Mustang, it's never going to really meet today's needs. So that's where Google Analytics 4 comes in, where we're really able to cater to the needs of today's consumer, today's website user, and change a lot of the way that we are measuring things. And so that's really what the impetus was for Google to develop Google Analytics 4, is so that we can really measure things in a much more modern way. We can go on to the next slide. Okay, so I'm going to turn things over to Brad to talk about the proper way to install GA4. I will be monitoring the search box as the Q&A box as Brad is presenting. So please feel free to drop any of the questions that you have into the QA screen. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our certified analytics expert, Brad Simonis. Take it away, Brad.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you. We're going to dive in to start with the proper installation of GA4, or the recommended installation methods for GA4. To start with, we strongly recommend you use dual tagging method, and that's kind of the method that's going on right now. With if you have GA4 installed, you're running GA4 in parallel to GA3, and you can start collecting your historical data now in GA4 once you get it set up, which is Gwen referred to is very important, because time is running out where we're going to run out of historical data in GA3, and we're going to be dependent on our old data in GA4. So the quicker we get GA4 in, the better off we're going to be. And it also gives us time to learn GA4 a little bit more, because we're going to point out some of the differences. It's going to look completely different. Well, not completely different, but there's going to be some differences in it. So this will give you time to learn about GA4 and learn about the GA4 reporting, which we'll talk a little bit about. One of the tools that we really like, and Gwen mentioned, is the Google Tag Manager. Google Tag Manager simplifies the process of installing the tracking code, and it also helps you create and track all your tags and events in one place. And it really makes things neater and easier. Even though in Google Analytics 4 now you can actually create events directly in GA4, which you could not do in GA3. You had to use Tag Manager if you had Universal Analytics, but this Tag Manager system still makes it easier for you to keep track of everything and manage everything. The other option that we really like is connecting Google Search Console to your Google Analytics 4. And you can do that by clicking on your admin, going to property links, and then just clicking on Google Search Console. This is going to allow you to see the Google Search Console data, such as queries and rankings in GA4. And that's going to help you with your SEO efforts when you can find out things like, what queries customers are using to find you and where you're ranking for those queries as well. So this is a great step forward for us to have Google Search Console embedded into our GA4. You're going to like that. So maybe you're saying, but I thought Google was automatically installing this for me. And you probably got this message from Google announcing that they were going to install it for you. So Google Analytics property is going to stop processing on July 1st, as we talked about. And in order to maximize the historical data in Google Analytics 4, we need to set it up as soon as possible. So Google is going to set this property up for you starting last March, and you may or may not have it installed already, but we're going to talk about what to do if you do have it installed already, because even Google recommends that we manually migrate our GA4 over to our analytics and not use the auto migration, because the auto migration is a very vanilla installation. It's not going to be customized for your needs. Now, when you first log into Google Analytics, you can see right away in the properties column if you have GA4 installed. But one of the tools that we really like to track all this is Google Tag Assistant. And in Google Tag Assistant, it's going to monitor the tags that are firing. So when you go to tagassistant.google.com and select your website, it's going to show you what tags fired when that website launched. And so we're going to maybe see a GA4 tag, or maybe we're not. If you have it installed, you should obviously see it. If Google installed it, you'll probably see it. And then you'll see your Universal Analytics tags. You may see some other tags of other things, tracking tags that are fired at the same time this site loads, but you want to concentrate on these two tags and see that they're only firing one time, because sometimes over time, different people getting into your website analytics, somebody might install another instance of Universal Analytics or GA4. And if we do that, if we have duplicate tags going, we're going to have duplicate data, and then all of our data is going to be worthless. So this is a good way to check on your tags that are firing and make sure you only have one tag firing for GA4 and GA3. So if you have had Google already auto install it for you, as Google recommends and we recommend, you'll want to disconnect that. And we have a blog on how to disconnect the Google Analytics 4 that's been auto installed for you. But basically, you just want to go to your Universal Analytics property in the admin section and click the disconnect option. And then you can go down to your GA4 property and go to property settings and select move to trash. And that will take it out of your analytics. And then you'll be able to do a clean install of GA4 and a custom install of GA4. So GA4 is the answer to life in 2023, as Gwen pointed out. There's a lot of great features, and we won't get into all of them, but it is the property of the future, and it's designed to measure both your website and your app data to better understand the customer journey. It uses this event-based data instead of session-based, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Everything in GA4 is an event. We don't have the sessions that we had in GA3. We obviously still have users, but we're going to look at users differently as well. Another big change in GA4 is the inclusion of privacy controls, such as cookieless measurement. And that brings Google Analytics 4 more in line with the GDPR rules and anonymizes the IP addresses by default. And keep in mind that the GDPR is not just for European, it started as an EU thing. There's a lot of states in the United States that have adopted similar privacy controls. So this will bring you in compliance with those controls. So that's an important factor. And then one of the big changes also is its ability to model user behavior so that we can predict a user's future behavior using predictive analytics, and it'll notify you. In this example on the left, you can see where it says users were 528% more than predicted, and that we predicted between 1 and 30, and you actually got 44 users. So it gives you all these tidbits of insights that you don't get in Google Analytics 3. And I don't know, Gwen, if you want to talk anything more about that.
Yes, well, I quickly wanted to, obviously the predictive analytics are really, really important for your business because you can see these trends over time and you can forecast into the future for how much website traffic you think you might be getting, especially if you are going to be, on a podcast or on another show. You might want to make sure that your traffic is trending in the right direction, or you might want to see how much that particular marketing event impacted your analytics. But the other thing that I wanted to address is this difference between event-based data instead of session-based data. And while that might sound like a very technical differentiation, one thing that Google Analytics 3 really struggles with is getting an accurate count of session-based data. And the reason for that is, I'm sure like many of you, for instance, I have maybe 20 tabs open at one time. And I might have a website running in the background for several days that I open. I might start reading an article and then I get a call or I have to go to a meeting. And then I come back 3 days later to either finish the article or download something. And so the way that Google Analytics 3 counted that data is as many different sessions. And that really can skew data, especially if you're looking at an event. For instance, we ran last year a analytics campaign for a live event while people were still doing virtual events instead of in-person conferences. And we wanted to know how many people were engaged in the event. Well, if somebody had that session running in the background, it could count that session multiple times instead of the one session. So that's really why Google has moved to this event-based data, so that we get more real world usage statistics. So that's really the point that I wanted to make, because event-based data and session-based data can sound confusing, but it really is working to our benefit as businesses.
Yeah, I agree. And the accuracy of the data is just all around better in GA4 than what you get in Universal Analytics. So you'll be happy with that. So let's just quickly review what's new and different. We've talked about a couple of these things, but in Google Analytics 3, bounce rate and session duration have been bounced. They're no longer available in GA4. Instead, we are looking at engagement rate and active engaged users, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then, as Gwen mentioned, in GA3, the sessions restart after 30 minutes, and in GA4, there's no session time limit. So back to her example, if somebody came to your site through a Google ad, for example, and just went to one page and then ended up going to lunch and coming back an hour later, their session would have restarted, and the source of that session would have been lost after the restart. So you wouldn't be able to find out where that conversion came from, if they converted after that initial session timed out. On the flip side, the benefit of GA3 is that it does hold your historical data forever, or at least it used to. Whereas in GA4, they only store data for 14 months. And that 14 months doesn't seem like a lot, but it does let you do year-over-year comparisons, which are critical. But I think one of the big reasons, well, other than a better product, I think Google is addressing this storage problem because there's millions of GA3 accounts out there, and they're storing all the historical data for all these accounts. It's got to be costing them a lot of money. And so by changing that to a 14-month storage time limit, it's going to be better for Google's profitability, which I'm sure we care about. GA3 separately tracks screen views like we know, and GA4 you can combine web views, app views, and even your CRM data in the same property, which is really neat. GA3 required the use of Google Tag Manager to create events, whereas GA4 comes out of the box with some events tracked automatically, and it also has the ability to create events within the GA4 platform, so you don't have to use Google Tag Manager if you want to create events and conversions. And then, as Gwen pointed out, GA3 really focuses on total users and sessions. GA4 talks about active users, and we're going to define that a little bit here. And then for data storage and backup, you can't get BigQuery, which is a database solution we're going to talk about for backing up your UA data, unless you have UA 360. But in GA4, everybody has access to BigQuery. It's an expensive solution, as we're going to talk about. It's not an easy solution, but for larger firms, it could be a great solution. So some of the reports look the same between Universal Analytics and Google Analytics 4, and I pulled up a sample here of one of those reports. And in the Universal Analytics report, you can see the users, sessions, the bounce rate, and the session duration. And as we discussed, the bounce rate and session duration are going away. So now what we have in GA4 are users, new users, event counts, and engagement time, average engagement time. So the average engagement time is the amount of time that they're actually engaged on your site, and I'll define that for you in a moment. But critical difference. The other difference you might notice is the users tend to come up a little bit less than the users in GA and GA3. The data is collected a slightly different way, and with the reset of the 30-minute session and all the different changes that they've made from GA3 to GA4, you're getting a more accurate picture of the number of users and new users on your site. So let's dive in a little bit into the events and the reports. When I talk about events, I hope everybody knows we're talking about kind of actions that are taken on your website, the actions that we want to track from users. Those are what we call events. And in Google Analytics 4, it comes out of the box with automatically collected events that are set up as soon as you install your GA4. And it also has this enhanced measurements events, and we'll talk about that as well. But you also have the ability to implement recommended events that are predefined in Google Analytics 4. And those events help unlock your reporting capabilities. And then the custom events is the all-important one, where we create the events to track, create the events to track these different actions on your site that are important. So where a user goes, where he comes from, what they do when they're on their site, we'll create events to track all those different things that are on the path towards creating that or converting that customer into a paying customer. So automatically collected events, they include page view, user engagement, session start, first visit, and scroll. Those are the 5 automatically collected events out of the box. Page view, as the name implies, is a user viewing your page on your site. And now in Google Analytics 4, that page title is also passed into the report, which is a nice little touch, a nice benefit. User engagement is defined as any time a user spends more than 10 seconds on your site, visits more than one page, or otherwise interacts with your site. So every time they interact with your site in one of those ways, it's going to tick an event for user engagement. Session start is just like it sounds. So it's the start of a session. The first visit is like it sounds. It's the user who hasn't been to your site before. And then one that I think is really neat is the scroll event. So if a visitor scrolls down to 90% or more of your page, you'll get an event for that as well.
Brad, while we're on this slide, I think it's important to point out again here, I know you discussed that bounce rate is going away, and that user engagement is really the inverse of bounce rate. But I just wanted to point out to everyone, a flaw in Google Analytics 3 was that with you could have a very high bounce rate on certain pages, for instance, your blog posts. If somebody is clicking into a blog to just read that page and then bounces off of your site, that would count as a bounce in GA3. Whereas now, not only is that a user engagement metric that somebody is actually engaged with the content of your website, but then it also goes into this scroll metric where if somebody reads your full blog post and you can see that they get to 90% of the page, that's also an indication for your business that you are creating content that is valuable for your ideal audience. So that's just one more way that Google Analytics 4 is really providing these better business insights to give you some direction on what type of marketing content you're creating.
Yes, good point. We talked about the enhanced measurement reports that are also available right out of the box. You just need to make sure that they're turned on. So in admin and data streams and go to web, I'll show you in just a second how that looks, but the enhanced measurement reports include form interactions, file downloads, video engagement, which is a really neat tracking of how far they watch your video, what terms they searched your site search with, and then outbound clicks from your site can be tracked as well. And so these are all really nice features to have, and they are included automatically. We just want to make sure that we have this enhanced feature turned on. So in this video, you'll see if you go down to your admin and up to data streams, and then click on your website or click the arrow to the right of your website, you'll see your website, and down here, you'll see enhanced measurements. And just make sure that that's toggled on. It should be toggled on out of default. The reporting options are great in GA4. I know that it's going to take some getting used to because they do report a little bit differently. But overall, you've got your real time like you have in GA3, and then you have acquisition, engagement, and monetization reports available, as well as user reports available further down. And we can share these reports as a link. We can share them as a CSV or a PDF file. We can also use this add comparison feature to compare reports or to even filter out IP addresses or something that some user that you don't want to show in that report. There's a different option for filtering your internal IP addresses in GA4 than GA3. Whereas in GA3, we could have a view of unfiltered and a view of filtered. And unfortunately, in GA4, there's no unfiltered view. So once you create that filter, that traffic is not going to be recorded. So when you're in development, you might want to just leave it as recording all events, but filter out the developer IPs or the internal IPs when you're running the reports.
Brad, can you talk for just a moment about why it would be important to filter out your own internal IPs?
Yeah, because we're probably the biggest users of our websites, in a typical day, if we're on our website a bunch of times, and if Google's counting all those visits, it's just going to skew all the data. I mean, all the metrics will get skewed, and it just doesn't apply to your business. You want to see what the outside users are doing on your website and what events they're tracking, because you'll click events automatically, or just as you go through your website, and you'll be generating event data. It is internal data that we don't want to really report on. So that's one way to do it in GA4, until you're ready to set up a permanent IP filter.
Yeah, Tammy Hawkins mentioned that she thinks most of the website visitors are herself. So that feature that Brad was showing is an important feature for you to be able to see your test data, make sure that everything is working, and then add that filter to your reports to be able to filter out your own traffic so that you are getting that accurate information.
Yeah, sometimes it's depressing to watch your user count go down, but it's better
Yes.
this way. Reporting options are also really dynamic in GA4. So you can go into your default reports and you can edit them as you see fit. And when you save that report, it'll actually save in the reports tab on the left-hand column where the standard reports are now. And even more exciting is you can create your own report from scratch and define it as you want to define it, and then save that, and that will also appear in your reports tab as a new collection that you created, depending on what you call it, obviously.
One of the things also about GA4 for anyone who has an application or who has a game, which I don't know how much of that pertains to our audience today, but some of the new report collections that you can install that Google has created as an add-on are reports that would track those kinds of activities as well. So it's definitely creating these buckets for different use cases to make it easier for everyone to get the data that they need based on their individual instance.
Yes. One of the reports that we love is the first user default channel group report, and that's telling us where users are coming from, as you probably know. But what you may not know is in Google Analytics 4, we have some new options for where customers are coming from in the channel groups. So in addition to direct and organic and paid search, we have organic social, and we have display advertising, and we also break out videos between organic videos and paid video, or video ads, I should say, which will show up here as well. So there's more options in your first user channel group now than there were in GA3, which is nice. Then I want to talk about this historical data issue, because we've been stressing that you need to start tracking your data in GA4 so that a year from now you'll have some data to go back and look at in comparisons. And after Universal Analytics goes away, we want to talk about how we can look at those old GA3 reports if we don't have the wherewithal for the big query, which I'll talk about in a second. But basically, there are manual options, like the previous slide said. The easiest thing to do would be to export it into Google Sheets, export your reports as PDFs or CSV files and save those for comparison. You'll still have to do some work, obviously, to make a comparison report out of it, but you will have the data. And if you're using Looker Studio, it's really easy to just print off reports for each different month or each different time period you're interested in. But if you save it by month, it'll make a great month-to-month report comparison data. Finally, Google talks about BigQuery, and BigQuery is a database solution that's really more ideal for really large organizations with a lot of data to back up. It is an expensive option, which means a bare minimum of $4,000 to $5,000 a year. It's not going to be ideal for everybody. Plus, you need to be able to query the database and understand how to perform queries and do all of that work as well. So it's out there. You can store all of your historical UA3 data, but it's not an easy or cheap option. So you may be thinking by now, can't someone just do this for me? So I'm going to bring Gwen back in to talk about that and talk about the options here.
So for those of you who just want to run Screaming from Tech, these are a couple of the different options that we have, and I can kind of go through also what might be something that is which of these would be a good solution for the majority of our audience is our solopreneurs based off of the poll that we did at the very beginning. So we do have the basic installation where we would set up your Google Analytics 4 with the manual installation, not off of Google's auto installed information and or installation rather. And then we will connect that to Search Console for you. And then we would also integrate it with Tag Manager. And why that's important is a lot of us are maybe running Facebook ads or Google ads, a number of different ad platforms, or even our marketing automation platforms. Maybe some of our CRMs might require a tag to be added into the website in order to collect data. Now, I just want to clarify, tags are different than plugins. If you have WordPress, plugins are something separate from a tag. You might need a tag in order to track user behavior on your site. So Tag Manager really simplifies the solution for you because it allows you to not have to contact your developer to add a new code to your website every time. It allows you to add it in Tag Manager instead. Some of you might still want to have somebody else manage your tags, but it gives you all one place to be able to see all of your data so that you know what you're tracking, because it can get very confusing when you have multiple things running at the same time. So this basic installation also includes the out-of-the-box reporting that Brad highlighted for everybody, and it also includes a little bit more in-depth tour and training on the reports and just where to find everything. For those of you who do a lot of marketing and have content downloads on your website, or you have a lot of video views, you might even just want to be able to track your user journey and see how many people get to the page that allows them to purchase their course, or your course rather. And perhaps some of you have your website and then you also have your course or another product on another site. Google Analytics 4 is really built for that specific instance. And so the advanced solution is really great for those people because it allows you to select 3 tailored events with us. We'll help you select those events, and then we will add those events into a custom dashboard for you that updates 24/7. So you don't have to wait for your, the first of the month to get your report on how everything is going. You can check in every morning if that's your jam, or you can check in once a week on how your sales are going, how your content marketing is going. So that's really also going to give you some better ideas about how people are interacting on your site. And then we also do a live training with you and your team to show everybody where to find the information they need to make these business decisions. And then also where to access all of the data that we've set up in the new reports. The custom installation is really for people who are looking to track that full marketing funnel. If you have a complex funnel set up where you are driving people in from multiple platforms that we mentioned, like Google Ads and Facebook ads, or any meta ads, any social media ads, and you want to see how many impressions you got through those ads, how many people then watched the video that you provide on your landing page? How many people clicked through to purchase? How many people abandoned their cart and didn't complete their purchase? What's that conversion rate look like for you? What is your ROI on all of your marketing efforts? That's really where the custom plan comes into play. And we also will meet with you and design reports that are very specific to your organization and make sure that we can see across all of your platforms what is working for you and how many conversions you're getting in that ROI. So that's kind of an overview of the different options that we provide for our clients. And let's jump into some of these questions. So one, I think, is a really great one that many people might have on their minds. This is from Lucy, and she says, I started installing G4 on my website and I never finished. Do you know if it will start the process over or will it saved where I stopped? What do you think, Brad?
It kind of depends on where you stop. So if you're seeing G4, if you're seeing the beginning of your installation when you're in the property column, then it's hard to say what Google will do, because Google wants you to connect your GA4 property to your Universal Analytics property. I prefer to run my Google Analytics 4 separate and just completely customized. So worst case scenario, it takes you a couple minutes to delete it and start over with a new installation. But you got to make sure you don't repeat that tag. So Tag Manager would be a good way to find out if that GA4 tag is firing or not.
Yeah, so visiting tagassistant.google.com and pasting in the URL for your website is the great place to start. And if it is showing that GA4 has fired when you click test, I believe, I don't know, then that means that it's working on your site. Another way to check is when you go to analytics.google.com, if you're looking in your list, if it says your website profile and then it says your website profile at G4 next to it, and you click into your G4 profile, if you look and see that there's any traffic being tracked, then that's a good indication that it is working. So that link again, Lucy, is tagassistant.google.com. Brad, maybe you can go back to the slide that appeared on, I think it was 4 or 5, and we can show you again what it is you'd be looking for. There you go. So Tag Assistant here, right in that box that Brad's highlighted where it says tags fired. If Google Analytics 4 configuration shows up, then that means your tag is working on your website.
Yeah, and the tag won't say GA4, but it'll have a long installation like this. So it'll be G something and then config, that's your GA4, and then your Universal Analytics next to it.
Yeah. Another question that we had is there another step to add Search Console to GA4? Is there an additional step to be able to get that query data into analytics?
No, once you go to, I'm not sure where that slide went to, but it's really simple to add. So when you go to the, I don't know if I can come up with it off the top of my head.
Do you want to come off share screen for a moment and then you can look for it, and then maybe we can do just a quick live demo of where you would install that.
Sure.
That might work. So there is one small step, and the other thing that you'll need to have is you need to have Google Search Console set up for your website, and you'll need to verify your domain. And so that will that is the first step to get that Search Console data. And Search Console is such a great tool also to have, because it's going to tell you if you have any pages that are loading extremely slow, if you have any pages where your core web vitals, which is a whole nother topic, where your core web vitals are very off. These things can all impact your search engine optimization and the usability of your website. So Search Console is another really great tool from Google that really gives you an idea of the health of your website. Okay, Brad, you found it here.
Yeah, so it is really easy. You should be able to just go to the property links under the admin, and then down to the bottom, you'll find Google Search Console, and you just click on it, and it will connect if all goes well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let me look here in our questions. So we have a great comment from Tammy, who said she likes the sound of the custom reports to help you know what you should be looking at. And yes, on that note about custom reports, if you have a business that is where you don't need to see everything in analytics, analytics will really tell you where all your users are coming from, if they're using desktop or mobile, all of these other things. But if you are really particularly concerned about how many people are making a conversion on your website and how many people are watching the videos that you've invested a lot of time and money into creating, if those are the things that you are most concerned with, then it's really helpful to have a report that just shows you those things. So for a lot of our clients where we manage their website and their search engine optimization, we have custom reports that are set up that show us in those reports their site load speed, what they're ranking for, all of the SEO elements that are really important that give us an easy barometer to check and say, oh, we need to make an adjustment, or we need to see what's going on with this page because it was loading fine, and now all of a sudden its site loads, the load speed for this page has gone up quite a bit, or Google had an algorithm update, and now we are not seeing as much traffic to the website. What changes do we need to make to our strategy for our search engine optimization that will help to counteract this algorithm update? Where do we need to correct? So reporting really does help you to make better decisions, and it can be tailored to your job function and your role, or it can be tailored to just what's most important to your business for this particular quarter or this particular year. So it's a really powerful, they're very, very powerful reports. All right, well, it looks like we have answered all of the questions in the question and answer module. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. As we mentioned, the recording of this webinar will be shared, and it'll be emailed out to everyone. And please do let us know if you have any questions around analytics or around any of our analytics solutions. And thank you so much, Brad, for leading us through this wonderful presentation and teaching us all a little bit more about Google Analytics and how this new platform is really going to help us with some better business insights.
And thank you, everybody, for attending, for sure.
Yes, thank you for taking your time out of your day. Good luck with your measurements and reporting, and let us know if you have any questions, and have a wonderful day.